And what is up, everybody? Apparently, um, someone was getting ridiculed because they posted up on Instagram how it was very insensitive that nurses are posting up these TikTok videos of these choreographed dance sequences, in the hospitals of these people that are, you know, supposedly out there on the front line. How it's very insensitive that, obviously people who are, being cared for, this, that, the other, and they're having to, they're having to do anything, do anything remotely like that. Because you got family members and people that are sick, that are seeking treatment, and people that are recovering from surgeries or anything like that in the hospital. The nurses are supposed to be taking care of them, and instead they are going through the trouble of putting together these dances and shooting these little videos to put on TikTok or whatever. I didn't necessarily have a problem with that, because during my time in the Marine Corps, like even after I got out of the Marine Corps, prime example, when everybody was doing Harlem Shake videos. Oh God, when everybody was doing Harlem Shake videos, it was awful. But one of the pilots that I worked with, who was in my old squadron of 323, he eventually, long after I left, he had gone to VMFA 314, which is the Black Knights. The Black Knights is the same squadron that Will Smith was in Independence Day. Now, they did a Harlem Shake video out on the flight line on one of the jets. It was ridiculous. And I'm friends with this guy on Facebook, and I asked him, me and him were big fans of UFC. I lost a bet to him where I had to buy him a beer. That's how good friends me and him are. As a matter of fact, you want to know who it was? His name was Major Brian Dennis at the time, and the story of the Marine that rescued that dog in Iraq. This is him. And I asked him, I say, how the hell did you guys get permission to do that? He's like, there was no permission asked for. We just did it, and there was a lot of apologies made afterwards. I understand why they did that, because yes, we're supposed to be ever vigilant, this, that, the other, but there's way too much downtime for us. Especially while I was in Iraq, yes, we're being shot at every other day, but all that time in between, nothing. Trying to stay ever vigilant, you're more or less gonna drive yourself crazy. To be perfectly honest, if not for the little bit of downtime, I genuinely don't know what state of mind I would be in right now. However, with these nurses, not taking anything away from their jobs, their job is very important. It's very important what it is that they're doing. But if all these hospitals are being overrun with COVID-19, where are these nurses going to find the downtime to shoot these videos? It's like people need their drug treatments, people need respirators, this, that, the other. But they're shooting dance videos through the waiting rooms and outside of patients' rooms and everything like that. But hospitals are overrun. So what's the narrative here exactly? What is the narrative here? Especially because somebody posted this, and this was hilarious. This was totally fake, but it just made all the sense in the world. And it said, a skydiver who jumps out without a parachute dies from the coronavirus. Basically what it's saying is the horrible inaccuracies of the way this is. Guys gentlemen die in a car accident. They just happen to test positive for COVID-19, and that gets tallied up with the rest of the people that died for COVID-19. People who were dying from a bunch of other different ailments, but they just happen to have COVID-19 as well. They said, oh, he died from COVID-19. Are you sure it wasn't his testicular cancer? No, it was COVID-19. The man's been on death's door for the past 8 months. No, it was COVID-19 that killed him. Stupid stuff like that. Horrible inaccuracies. Which is why you can't focus so much on the death toll of it. Not to mention the fact that all the numbers that they've predicted have been wrong so far. They say that there's they say how there's no they say how they can't get a vaccine for at least a year. Meanwhile, they got Johnson & Johnson already has one that they're ready to start testing, and I'd volunteer myself for it if they'd let me. I recently had to go to the emergency room for stuff that was completely unrelated, but I thought that it could possibly be that that I was a carrier, and they wouldn't test me because they're like, oh, you don't exactly have the symptoms of it, so okay, understandable. But there's plenty of people walking around that are carriers, might not even know they're infected because they're not suffering from any symptoms. And you have the means of testing. Then I come to find out that a lot of people who've possibly recovered, people who had no symptoms and were put into self-quarantine, after they're done with their quarantine, doctors won't retest them. So you can't even rely on the recovery rate, even though the recovery rate is showing to be more promising than what the actual death toll is. And right now within the U.S., I think this morning there was over 41,000 people that have recovered. And for those 41,000 people that have recovered, please step up in any way that you can, because your country needs you now more than ever. And just can't obviously you can't necessarily believe everything that you hear. Nurses, if you got time, Nurses of America, I applaud your work. Your job is very important. But clearly, if you have time to be doing silly things like that, it's not as bad as you and the mainstream media is trying to make it out to be. Because clearly it's not. I'm not saying we shouldn't be careful. I'm not saying that this is possibly fatal. I'm not saying any of that. Just take into account, with everything that's been going on for the past month now, the economy has tanked. So many people are out of jobs. Just so many different things. I myself, because I was claimed as a dependent, I don't get a relief check, so I got screwed. And just certain little things like that. It gets ridiculous. It has been absolutely ridiculous. And for those of you who try to be informed, this isn't a left-wing thing. This isn't a right-wing thing, despite the fact that it's the left wing that's really pushing this apocalyptic narrative that clearly it's not that bad. I mean, like over 80,000 people die from the flu each year. We barely broke 20,000. And that's not and we barely broke 20,000, but that's counting the God knows how many people that just happened to die while infected, not that the infection was the cause of death. These are things to consider. I'm done talking. You guys have a good night.